In a couple of months, we're going to have our next Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices meeting, where they're going to set the COVID vaccine recommendations once more. So, I want to get us aligned before this happens. The top line item is always going to be that everyone needs to be able to access these vaccines. They need to be universally available for 6 months and up. Immunocompromised individuals need to continue to be allowed to get a COVID vaccine every 2 months. And we also need to keep the 65 plus additional dose vaccine recommendation. Now that we have that out of the way, I'll talk about the big goals that we want in addition to things that we can easily get in this next round. But to do that, we need massive public comment. The biggest reach goal is that we need COVID vaccines every 4 months. On average, our COVID vaccine immunity wanes in 3 to 4 months after receiving it. Leaving you basically unprotected during that time, the active immunity is worn off, you're just left with memory immunity at that point. And the obvious solution to that is then, well, get a COVID vaccine every 3 to 4 months. The next high-level reach goal is then updating the COVID vaccine every 6 months. This means an updated formula, because variants are mutating so quickly that they're getting sufficiently far enough away that even if you're vaccinated, you're not having sufficient protection against the current strains. And this is completely doable with mRNA vaccine technology. And it can even be possible with Novavax protein-based technology. It would be very difficult for them, but it would be possible in 6 months' time. So on a every 6 months new vaccine target selection, well then the obvious thing is setting the COVID vaccine recommendation at every 3 months. That way you get an updated vaccine formula and a booster within a 6-month period. Those are our reach goals. They should be a no-brainer, but unfortunately there's something that we really have to push for and hope for. Now let's get to the tangibles or the low-hanging fruit. These are things that I think are very doable and possible to achieve in this round of vaccine recommendations. The first one is to allow all immunocompromised individuals to receive the multiple boosters a year, as opposed to limiting it to moderately or severely immunocompromised. Any immune-compromising condition should be allowed to get a vaccine every 2 months, as even if you're quote-unquote mildly immunocompromised, you're still immunocompromised. The second obvious one is in terms of BMI. We know definitively that if you have low BMI or high BMI, then your COVID vaccine effectiveness is going to wane a lot faster than it would if you had a normal BMI. The categories this applies to is the underweight, the overweight, and the obese categories. At the bare minimum, a BMI under 18.5 or greater than or equal to 30 should be added to the recommendations for additional vaccine doses. This is another no-brainer because just like for people over the age of 65, these are people that have shortened vaccine efficacy windows. They have a shorter duration of protection. Finally, there should be an additional booster dose for pregnant individuals in the 3rd trimester, as newly born infants can't get vaccinated until 6 months. Maternal COVID vaccination is their only protection against severe disease, bypassing of the COVID vaccine antibodies in utero. I think these 3 things are very logical and reasonable things to ask for, and I currently do not see why they shouldn't be recommendations. This is my thinking for the general plan of attack come October. Let's get aligned and get on board and make public comments.